You are listening to the Marc Guzman podcast experience.
Okay, so the next topic is presidential housing plans. So we have a few Democratic candidates. We have Kamala Harris, we have Cory Booker, and Elizabeth Warren, and they're each proposing. They're trying to figure out a way to attack housing, and this is on a national level. And they each have somewhat of a similar proposal. Kamala Harris is proposing the Rent Relief Act, which could cost up to $94 billion per year. They assume 7.4 million people will be pulled out of poverty. And basically, what this plan would do is provide credits when your rent exceeds 30% of your income. Cory Booker has a similar one that would cost about $134 billion per year, which would pull 9.4 million Americans out of poverty. And this would give you a credit difference between the 30% income and your rent that's being paid. So you do collect a little bit more rent credit. Now, Elizabeth Warren is doing something a little bit different in that instead of providing some kind of rent credit, she's trying to attack the housing supply and demand issue. So basically what she wants to do is spend up to $50 billion a year, and instead of providing rent credits, she wants to try to reduce rents 10% nationwide by increasing the supply, essentially giving cities and counties and various different jurisdictions credits and grants to build more housing. So she's attacking it from supply and demand. Harris and Booker are attacking it from providing rent credits. Brian, what's your take on this?
My whole thing is just to create more supply. As I've gone through all the different proposals that each of these candidates have had, I found many pros and many cons in either one of them. But the one that I'd have to gravitate to the most is the one that would make it easier for more housing to be created. One thing that I was looking for in all of their proposals was something that might allow developers to not get gouged by the cities themselves. So case in point, a big deterrent to being able to build is that many cities are adding on additional fees, or impact fees is what they call them, to developers who want to be able to exceed the number of units that are normally allocated for a parcel or a piece of land. So case in point, if I want to build an apartment complex and the most that I could build there is, say, 20 units, but I'm proposing a plan that's a lot more, that will create a higher density to maybe allow me to go to 40 or maybe 60 units. After a certain point, I'm going to have to pay an additional $10,000 to $12,000 per unit that they allow me to go, which really cuts into the bottom line, and then also begins to diminish the whole idea of being able to add more units, which answers the whole problem of the supply. And so, in addition to what I saw missing from a lot of these different proposals was something that would allow the cities to be able to make it. To be able to reduce the amount of impact fees that they're really taking in, to actually use those fees towards actually building a better or more units, which would probably help the whole housing crisis more than collecting fees from developers who are supposedly, greedy and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, one of the issues I see with Harris and Booker's proposals here for housing fixes is that we've already had a lot of economists come out and analyze Kamala Harris's plan when she first announced it several months ago. And they're not the first politician to propose this kind of plan. There's been prior politicians that have proposed something very similar. The problem is, and there's plenty of studies that show it, is that what happens is these credits eventually make their way to the landlord. And so the landlords will make more money because now you have tenants that are getting a rent credit. Now they're able to afford more housing. And so what they plan to do is then, or what the average renter will do is go and get something a little bit more expensive, right? And then before you know it, every landlord's raising their prices because they know tenants can afford it. And so because tenants can afford it, they're paying these higher prices. So these rent credits are simply going to filter through right to a landlord, and the landlord's going to make more money.
Well, and that was why that was why when I looked at the overall plan, my main focus and what I was looking at that was lacking was something that would allow more units to be able to be made. Because just addressing your simple point there, if everybody's raising their rents, the main reason you're able to do that is because the supply is going down. And so regardless of how much additional money or credits someone might be able to bring to the table to give to the landlord to pay rent, at the end of the day, if there's more units to offset that, the prices will still stay lower. I mean, that's a big issue with our urban infill areas. Is just they're so impacted. And then you have all these issues with traffic demand. So you have people building more housing further away, so they need more cars, and it makes our freeways that much more congested. Whereas if you begin to just make it so much easier to live within the cities where the jobs are, then not only would our traffic begin to slow down because you wouldn't need cars, but you'd also begin to have more supply, therefore reducing the actual cost of it.
Okay, so
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at marcguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.